Let me tell you a story about a man who walked into a room full of people who thought they already knew his worth, and about the moment they realized they were dead wrong. It started at a military appreciation event, one of those big community gatherings with flags waving, bands playing, and officers trying way too hard to look important. Families lined up for photos. Kids ran around with painted faces. But underneath the music and the noise, there was tension, the kind that sits in the air before a storm. Because that's when he walked in, a tall black soldier, quiet, focused, dressed in a uniform so clean you'd think he ironed it with heaven's light. But to most people there, he was just another face in the crowd. And to one officer in particular, he was a problem. The officer's stocky red face, with the kind of authority complex you could smell, watched the soldier step toward the VIP ceremony area. And instead of asking a single question, instead of checking a badge, instead of giving basic human respect, he marched over and snapped. Everyone turned. Phones went up. Murmurs rippled like a breeze. The soldier stayed calm, polite, almost painfully patient. "Sir," he said, "I'm part of the presentation." But the officer cut him off. Louder this time. Sharper. "Not today, you're not. Step back. Now." A few people flinched, not because of his words, but because of what they meant. See, this wasn't about protocol. It wasn't about rules. It was about who the officer thought the soldier was. Just another man he could order around. Just another black face he could talk down to. Just another person who didn't belong in the space reserved for the powerful. The soldier gave one warning. Calm, steady, unshaken. "Officer, I wouldn't do that." But the officer grabbed his arm anyway. And that's when the world shifted. The soldier turned. Slow, controlled, like he'd been pushed for the last time in his life. And that's when the officer saw it. The insignia, the silver eagle, the rank that outranked him by miles. A full bird colonel. The officer's hand fell away like it had been burned. His face collapsed into pure panic. People gasped. Someone whispered, "Oh, he messed up." The colonel didn't yell, didn't curse, didn't even raise a hand. He just said, the officer didn't have a response. He couldn't even speak, because this wasn't just embarrassment. This was exposure. His bias, caught. His arrogance, filmed. His entire power trip, broadcast to the world. And the colonel, he simply walked past him. Every medal on his chest shining like a reminder of everything the officer failed to see. Justice had arrived without a single punch thrown, because moments later, right as the colonel stepped onto the stage, a woman from the back of the crowd shouted. He froze. The crowd went silent. The officer, still embarrassed, still trying to shrink into himself, looked up sharply, because he knew exactly what she meant. The colonel's past, the investigation they tried to bury, the truth the officer hoped would never surface again. And now, it was back. Hot, live, explosive. The colonel turned slowly, eyes narrowing, not in fear, but in recognition, like he already knew exactly who had set this moment in motion, and exactly who he would confront next. The officer swallowed hard, because he did. The colonel stepped off the stage like a man walking through smoke, slow, deliberate, carrying the weight of a truth that refused to stay buried. The moment that woman's voice broke through the music, everything shifted, not just for him, but for everyone watching. People murmured. Phones lifted again. The officer who tried removing him earlier, he suddenly looked like he wanted to vanish into the grass. And the colonel, he walked straight toward the woman who'd shouted his name. Her hands trembled, but her voice didn't. "They reopened the case, Colonel Matthews," she said. "They found something." The colonel's jaw tightened. A heartbeat of silence. Then he asked the question everyone else was too afraid to speak. "What did they find?" The woman swallowed, glancing nervously at the officer still lingering nearby. A witness. A new one. The colonel froze. The officer blinked. Hard. Because this wasn't just news. This was a grenade. Years ago, Colonel Matthews had been accused, quietly, strategically, of misconduct during an overseas operation. Nothing public, nothing on record, just enough to stall his promotions, to stain his reputation, to make certain people very comfortable with him staying silent. And the officer from earlier, he'd been part of that internal investigation, the kind where the truth is decided before questions are even asked. The colonel had always said the same thing. I did nothing wrong. Someone else did, and they used me to cover it. But there had never been proof. Not until now. The officer's face drained as if a ghost had brushed right through him. She leaned in. They said the witness has documents, she whispered. Real evidence. Names, dates, orders, everything. The colonel didn't respond. Didn't breathe. Didn't blink. His eyes were locked on the officer behind her. The same man who tried to drag him out like he didn't belong. That officer looked away. But guilt has its own gravity, and it pulled his gaze right back. The colonel stepped toward him. Officer, the colonel said quietly, too quietly. People stopped talking. The wind seemed to pause. You knew this was coming. The officer shook his head, but his voice cracked. I don't know what you're talking about. But the colonel didn't buy it. Nobody did. Because the officer wasn't just sweating, he was unraveling. There's a reason you didn't want me near this event, the colonel continued. A reason you didn't want me being seen, recognized, respected. Sir, please. You thought if I stayed out of sight, the truth would stay buried. The officer took a step back, but the colonel followed. A man with a conscience moves carefully. A man hiding something moves fast. And this officer, he was practically shaking. I'm not your enemy, the officer blurted out. I did what I was ordered to do. The crowd gasped, because that one sentence said everything. Ordered by who? And why? And what were they still hiding? The colonel leaned in, voice low and deadly calm. Then I suggest you tell me exactly who gave you those orders. The officer's eyes darted around like the truth was hunting him. I can't, he whispered. They'll come after me. Who? The colonel pressed. Who's behind this? The officer opened his mouth, but before he could speak, the sharp crack echoed across the field. Not a gunshot, but something worse. The speaker, mounted on stage, popped loudly as it suddenly turned on, broadcasting a distorted voice over the entire event, a voice that sounded calm, cold, unmistakably intentional. The colonel's head snapped toward the stage. The officer nearly collapsed. The voice continued, and then silence. The crowd stared, frozen, breath held. The colonel's eyes darkened. Someone else was here. Someone powerful. Someone who knew exactly what was happening. And they weren't done yet.